Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today. My next guest is somebody who I've known for a very long time, but as he said in our preamble, I think we've done a total of one gig together. A trumpet player, trombonist, singer, and what's even more is a tap dancer. And now what's funny about that, it's not funny, haha. It's funny that some of my other interviews I've given introductions to, Ray Templin's a good example. And I'll say, he does this, he does this, he does this, and if you ask him, he can probably tap dance. But you're the first guy I've ever talked to who actually tap dances.
Yeah.
Well. All right, so you can see by your T-shirt here. Tell me about your T-shirt.
It's kind of a long story, but the short story is I created a notation system for tap dancing that goes on a musical staff. So you can read tap steps just like a percussionist would read tap music.
Do you have an app for Finale?
No. Actually, I'm a Sibelius guy, but
yeah. Then I'm not going to talk to you. Okay.
I have a book. I have a book that's actually on iBooks, Apple iBooks right now. The first book, the beginning book, shows some tap steps, but maybe we can get into it later about how that all came about.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking, by the way, to Mr. Greg Varlotta.
Hi, everybody.
One of the infamous side street Strutters. But we're going to start all the way back at the beginning, okay. When you were just a wee lad. And were your parents musical?
My father was a trumpet player, a weekend musician, played almost every weekend when I was a kid.
And he was a trad player?
He was a dance band musician,
okay,
mostly out of the big band era. So,
yeah, he was of that era that if you owned a horn, you were in a band.
As a matter of fact, he and his brother both played trumpet and started their own band in Long Beach, California.
Wow. What was the name of the band?
The Knights of Rhythm.
Wow.
In the late 40s, early 50s. So actually 1959, I was going through some of my dad's stuff, and I came across a box of old reel-to-reel tapes and found a gig that they had recorded from 1959, Valentine's Day 1959, and I had it digitized, and it's amazing. It brought me chills to hear my dad actually perform in the band that he talked about, and I never got to hear. So that's pretty
very, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, how did he go from Long Beach to Lockport, Indiana?
Illinois.
Illinois, there you go.
Yeah. Lockport, Illinois, which is just outside of Joliet and about 35 miles south of Chicago. I like to put it into perspective. I was kind of close to Chicago, never really got there much, but it was a job issue. He got married and he was in the Korean War, came out of the Korean War, was working at a gas station with his brother, and wanted to, start a family, and for some reason decided, and it was through relatives that he got the job at Argonne National Laboratory in Illinois, and settled in Lockport, which is where we stayed until I moved to Arizona and went to Arizona State.
But he was originally from Long Beach then.
Yeah. Well, actually, he was originally from Pittsburgh. So, but we don't want to get into the history of my dad too much. I mean, I don't know that much about it, but I know that he met my mom out in California, and I'm
actually,
here I am.
Yeah, Flip Oak's parents were in Pittsburgh and decided that they were done with the snow and came out here. So
right, which is why I came out to Arizona.
Oh.
Because the blizzard of 1978 in Lockport was cold enough for me. And my sister came out to Arizona and to be a nurse at Arizona State and said, "You have got to check this out." So
your dad was your first music teacher, your first trumpet teacher then? And, I was just going to ask you, did you go through the whole school system band programs too?
I actually did, but I picked up a trumpet as early as I could, which was at the age of 4, I wanted to play the trumpet, but it was too big. And my dad said, he gave me a mouthpiece. He said, "Blow into this, and when you can play Happy Birthday, I'll give you a cornet." And
Wow.
I blew on that thing he told me, this is the story he tells me because I don't remember, but he said, I blew on that thing for about a year. So obviously by the time I put it into a horn, I had an embouchure and some sound and some air. And this is 1966. I was 5 years old. And of course, Herb Alpert was all on the radio. And so I had a concept of what, trumpet music sounded like. Of course, my dad practiced 3-4 nights a week. And I heard him practicing every night. And I just gravitated right to it and started playing with sides of Herb Alpert recordings at a very early age. So,
yeah, you're a bit younger than I am. When I was in junior high, a bunch of us in high school, actually, a bunch of us started a Herb Alpert band. They had, I think Mel Bay had a combo book that he had put out.
Right. Okay. And what my dad would do, since I couldn't even read words yet, he would write down the fingerings for the songs on the recordings, and I would follow the fingering charts, and I could play the whole sides of Herb Alpert in one sitting when I was 5 and 6 years old.
Wow.
So, and there's some recordings of that. I may post some more of that. I posted one of them on my Facebook music page of me playing the Tijuana Taxi at 5. But also my dad played a lot of big bands, and he was kind of a stylist as a trumpet player, and his claim to fame was Cherry Pink. He could play the snare on Cherry Pink like nobody's business. But I grew up listening to a lot of big bands and a lot of Stan Kenton, a lot of Perez Prado, and also the couple of trad groups that come to mind are the Kings of Dixieland, which was Dick Cathcart on trumpet or cornet, and Ray Conniff on trombone. I can't remember some of the other, maybe Matty Matlock on clarinet, but my favorite trad trumpet guy was Al Hurt. He was, to me, a powerhouse, and his first swing, what was it called? His Swing and Dixie. He did a series of 4 albums of Al Hurt Swing and Dixie. The first one has, of course, all the hits on it. It has Tiger Rag. It has Saints, and Darktown Strutters Ball, I think, is on there. Just some really, really famous tunes, and just the power of his sound and the way he just muscled all the notes where he wanted them, and was also very, some of the ballads he did, New Orleans, and just beautiful stuff. And
he's tremendous. I've got a huge collection of Albert's.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, I started as a trumpet player also.
Oh, I think I might have remembered that when we were doing our one gig together. Talked about that. But I listened to a lot of that stuff and and then of course when I became a teenager, I started listening. I had an 4-year older brother, and he was into a lot of the rock stuff, and I started getting into that a little bit, and really didn't click with the whole trad jazz thing until I got to Arizona State, where I met the Side Street Strutters.
Right.
But I did go through the school band program, and was mandatory private lessons once a week.
Was that in high school?
This was in fourth grade. Starting in 4th grade.
So you had a different teacher other than your father?
Yes, starting in 4th grade. Well, my dad never really sat down with me and did lessons, but I just did what I did. He helped me with the Herb Alpert stuff, and once I was, and actually he would play along with me when the situation, when I was able to play, actually read music, which was really painful for me at first because I had already been playing since from 5 to the age of 10 or 11 when I started the band program. I just was by ear until then. Then I had to start learning to read notes. And once I could do that, though, it happened pretty quickly. And once I could do it, we started playing duets together and reading music. And I played with him at the church, and we did, Messiah and all the trumpet stuff, trumpet voluntary, and all the stuff that you would do as a kid, So,
did you end up rebelling at any point in time, or have you always had a great relationship with your father?
well, there was one time I wanted to quit band, and it was fifth or sixth grade. It was right at the beginning because it was hard, and I didn't really like practicing too much like any other kid. And I just came up to him and I said, I think I want to quit band. He goes, I can't let you do that. And that was it.
Yay, Dad.
Yeah. And that was all there was. And then I forgot about it and never really thought about it since. And of course, I went into high school. That's another little bit of a twist there. But I went to a Catholic school that was trying to start a marching band or a band program. They didn't have any. And the band director was a retired band director who came out of retirement, Ernest Kaniva, who was really big in the Midwest and had an award-winning band at my public high school. But he went to this Catholic school, and they tried to start a band with some good players, and that only worked about a year and a half.
That was at Providence, right?
That's right, Providence High School. That's exactly right. And so I went back to the public high school, which was a block from my house, so I could walk to school, and finished out there, and then decided to go to Arizona State for a music degree, and that's what I did.
Tell me a little bit more about the program at Lockport. Was it a complete comprehensive instrumental program? Did they have jazz and marching and concert and?
Kind of. They had a bit of a jazz program. They had a swing choir that had a band. Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah. So I was involved in the marching band, the symphonic band. It was called stage band. It wasn't really around improvisation. So everything was reading, but I was also in they do Broadway shows. So I was in Hello, Dolly in the Pit Orchestra.
I did that in high school.
Yeah. I think there was probably one other one my junior year, but my senior year I remember playing in the Pit Orchestra. And so, yeah, same thing with my middle school band, and junior high had a great music program with a stage band and a concert band and marching band. So,
what got you into both trombone and tap dancing? When did that happen in your timeline?
Trombone, my dad bought a trombone at a garage sale or something and brought it home, and it was an absolute dog. It was a Holton, had leaks in it, but of course I was just being who I was. I was like, oh, this can't be that hard, and I played it off and on. My dad tried playing it for a little bit and got pretty good, and but put it down because it started to affect his trumpet chops. Same for me, but I ended up playing it in my 8th grade Halloween marching parade, and I arranged for the marching band Hogan's Heroes. And the trombone counter melody is so prominent, and nobody could play it, so I learned it so I could march in the parades and hear it. And then I put it away, didn't touch it until 1996 or 97.
Was that your first attempt at arranging, or had you been arranging other stuff?
Well, my dad was doing a little bit of arranging. He was involved in a Kiwanis Club show for charity, and they asked him to be the musical director. And he didn't have a whole lot of theory chops, but he would take lead sheets and try to arrange them for a couple of horns for the band that they would have. And then he asked me to help him, and we started arranging. Probably, around 7th or 8th grade, I started kind of dabbling in that a little bit. But it was all by lifting stuff that I would hear on recording. So my first one was Patricia by Perez Prado. And
I grew up with that stuff. Yeah.
The whole band, I would go part by part and try to find all the notes. And it was excruciating at first, but that's how you learn.
My question is, though, who did the hooah? Is it...
Well, when it came time for the gig, I think it was my dad because he was, he was in charge of that stuff. So yeah, it was fun stuff. And by the way, I at the age of 16, I went down to the Musicians Union in Joliet and joined and started playing with big band gigs with my dad at the age of 16. And he,
Great
of course,
stuff.
let me play lead.
Well, you must have had better chops than he.
Well, he never had high chops, but it was always something, once I heard Maynard Ferguson for the first time on Camille.
Oh.
That was in high school. So, yeah, right around then I started to play along with that. So,
Well, if you're just sticking to the 40s big band stuff, you really don't need anything above a C. But
right.
But, with Maynard, then the sky's the limit, literally.
Yes. However, Bill Chase was in the Woody Herman Orchestra in the 60s. And another thing my dad would do is record. There was a show called the Big Bands on Sundays. And he got out his reel-to-reel and recorded some of the great big bands when they were still alive. Woody Herman was still there, Duke Ellington, Harry James. And I still have those recordings, and Woody Herman's band was playing Woodchopper's Ball, and Bill Chase took a screech solo at the end of it. And of course I had to transcribe it and figure out everything he was doing. And that's really where I started to, gel at listening and getting my ears tuned up to what was happening, and transcribing became a real fun thing for me.
Did you ever transcribe the high notes from Happy Go Lucky Local with Cat Anderson?
No, but
have you heard that cut?
Obviously. Huh?
Have you heard that cut?
I don't think I have. I've heard some Cat Anderson, but
he imitates a train whistle.
I'll have to check it out now.
Yeah, it's Ellington. But anyway,
great.
Those high note guys, man.
Yeah.
I was talking to a bunch of people that this is probably 10 years ago now, and a lot of trumpet players were lamenting the fact that kids don't seem to be interested in high chops anymore, or at least not as much as we were.
Well,
and that they're missing lead players with the younger generation.
I think instrumental music. It seems to me, of course, I'm not involved. I'm not seeing, high school kids much, but instrumental music seems to has taken a back seat to obviously the computer generated stuff, because it's so much easier to all of a sudden you press a button and you have all this sound coming at you, as opposed to trying to recreate the sound yourself, but there are some you still once in a while I'll be knocked out by somebody, some post on YouTube of some kids doing something that's just I never would have even thought of at whatever age they're doing it. 11, 10, they're playing bass, just ridiculous Jocko stuff. And but yeah, it's still in our DNA somewhere. It's not as prominent as it used to be, because it's not everywhere in our society.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We also talk a lot about the fact when I was growing up, that the only really big band stuff we could get on TV was Lawrence Welk. And watch the Welk show religiously, even as much heat as our peers would give us.
Right.
You can hear instrumental music anywhere else. Maybe the Mickey Finn show when it was on, but
well, and even in those days, a lot of the variety shows like Carol Burnett or the Smothers Brothers had full bands, and Sammy Davis I think had a show, Dean Martin had a show, so they still had, and of course the Tonight Show band.
Oh God, yes,
it was on, and just occasionally Johnny would let them cut loose on something, and to this day my favorite is still Stardust, which was arranged by what's his
Tommy Newsom?
Yeah, Tommy Newsom. Thank you.
Now, I don't know, which brings us to the NAJE, the INAJE, Southern Comfort Contest when you were there.
Yes.
Of course, I was a member of the band that won the first one in '80.
Right.
Along with Dan Barrett and Brian Shaw and Howard Alden and those guys.
Right.
And Tommy Newsom was one of the judges then. I don't know if he was for your years.
He was. It was Tommy Newsom and Clark Terry.
Right.
And gosh, I don't remember.
I think Mike Vax was on our panel also.
Yeah, I don't think it was Mike, but I honestly, I'd have to look at the tapes. I still have the tapes, of course, but yes, and that was really the kind of the start of our career. As you may or may not know, a couple of the guys that were in that band had previously in '83 been in the Disney All-American College Band the summer before that in Florida.
I didn't know that.
And so one of the scouts, they contacted some people from Disney through those contacts and said, hey, we're going to be touring. Once we won the competition, we toured the country. And of course, it's just a big promotion for Southern Comfort. We didn't, we kind of knew that as kids, but we were just having a blast, just traveling around and playing and stuff. But they set up a showcase for us at Disney in Anaheim. And Stan Fries, who was the scout there at the time, said, hey, we just fired our band about 8 months ago, our Dixieland band. You guys want a job?
that was the Miners, right?
The Jazz Miners, that's correct. So we all said yes, and I was still finishing my degree at Arizona State at the time. We started in January of 1985, and I was going to set to graduate in May of '85. So I still had, I had 3 classes to finish. I was going to school pretty much full time during the week, and then we would go out on the weekends. We would fly out on the weekends, play Friday night private parties, Saturday double shift, Sunday, fly home in time to go to school again. I did that from January until May, and then in June, I drove out there. Bought a brand new car with the help of my mom. She co-signed for me. I bought a brand new car, drove out there, and was there for 21 years.
Well, I should thank you, because when you guys replaced the Miners, I ended up with Brad and Rusty over at Knott's Berry Farm. And,
right.
Because I was in that band for 9 years with them.
Uh-huh.
But so it's interesting.
Fantastic. How it's funny how the stuff works out. But
yeah, especially since we end up with Rusty then at the jazz camp. But
right. Well, and as it turned out, our trombonist, Joey Sellers, we were there for 10 years. So I think in '96, he decided it was time for him to go try his hand in New York. So he was getting ready to head to New York. So we were looking for a trombonist. And we searched for 8 months. And Disney said, if you don't find somebody, we'll find somebody for you. Well, that's when I got the idea. We actually, Rusty had come in and sub for us on trumpet once, and I had played trombone, and it was pretty rough because I hadn't been doing my homework, but I felt that I could do it, and Rusty was such a good fit because he'd already been there, knew all the material, knew how the theme park worked, sounded great, it was just, I just thought this could probably work. And so I tried my best and coerced the guys, the 2 brothers, Rob and Vince, and we hashed it out, and Rusty said yes. And the very first year, I was on trombone for the whole year.
I think when we met, you were on trombone, actually.
Oh, okay. That's possible. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was on the casual. I think that Rusty called. It may have been you, me, and Rusty, and a banjo player or something. But
oh, okay. Yeah, that's very possible. I was trying to think of who else was on that gig, but it's so long ago. But I do remember it was Anaheim. I don't remember.
Yes.
Where it was.
Neither do I. But, like I said, I think I'm a little bit older than you are, so my memory's all the way gone. Oh.
Yeah, it just keeps getting further and further away. But it's all good stuff. That was a fun gig. I remember having a good time, for sure.
Yeah, well, so you spent 10 years at Disney?
10 years on trumpet and then 10 years on trombone. Actually, trombone and trumpet. So 21 years total from 1985, and I came back to Arizona in 2006. And once Rusty got there, we devised a plan where he would play. He actually, because we were still touring as a group, the Side Street Strutters, we wanted the opportunity to keep doing that. So what Rusty did was he formed another band of his own that he would lead when we took off. And so it ended up being he was in the Strutters 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week he would do his band.
Is that what they call Jambalaya Jazz? Is that the?
I think it was the River
Oh,
Rascals.
the River. Okay.
Before Jambalaya Jazz. Jambalaya Jazz was after 2006 when they wiped the slate clean and started over, which was another reason that I decided to leave. We knew that was coming, but we didn't know to what extent. But we found out that they just decided to fire everybody, and you could re-audition if you wanted to do it. But I had already made my decision at that point.
Yeah, when they completely devastated the Disneyland band, that was a pretty incredible move.
It was, but understandable from a corporate standpoint what they were trying to do.
Sure.
They were just trying to keep their image fresh, and of course, it became kind of like what the All-American College Band does. Go out and real high energy, a lot of choreography, and
they're trying to parallel the current high school and drum corps, of course, with what they were doing. But that never really struck me as appropriate to Main Street. The old Disneyland band is and I understand, like you said, I understand the corporate reasons and why things were done. But I think it changed the atmosphere of the whole park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seeing that the old band march down the street was like Main Street USA from the early 1900s.
Music band,
and I think a lot of people, I loved it. I always loved watching them march down the street, even when I was in it. It was I got to sub in that band a couple of times. So, again, it's a corporate decision.
Well, now that you're in Phoenix, you are surrounded by a whole plethora of jazz players, of early jazz players.
Yeah.
And more every day, it seems people are.
It seems as though that's the case, right? I actually don't do a whole lot of jazz gigs, and that's kind of my own fault. I'm not really great at networking, but when I first moved back to town, I was doing quite a bit of casual stuff. And, I was actually doing more road work than I was doing at home work. I did 2 tours with the Brian Setzer Orchestra out when I got here. So 2006, 2007 on trombone, I did 2 tours with them. I met up with Nils Lofgren, which was one of the other reasons that I moved out here, who's a guitar player, the lead guitarist with E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen, and he likes to go out and he was doing solo shows, he was doing some trio shows, and eventually ended up with a duo show. And his other guy was done, and so he was looking for another second person to join him that could play multiple instruments.
Have you always played guitar?
I started when I was 16, so again, that was the rock influence from, listening to some of that stuff, but I got into it, but never really did gigs with it. It's always kind of been just a hobby. I play at home a lot. However, the gig that I have now, I play a lot more guitar. But I tried it a couple of times at Disney when I was there. Actually, what I first did was when the Strutters would play on the streets of Disney, I learned to pick up a banjo and tune it like a guitar, so I could at least plunk some chords so we had some chords while we were on the street. And that's how that started. Then I would try to play on some of the sets on the stage, and it was I just didn't have the chops to be able to play solos or anything. So I quit that fairly quickly because it was too embarrassing. But and so I just kind of dabbled in it. I write a couple of things here and there. I'm not a writer per se. I've written a couple of things, but and I still have a part of me that's in folk rock and classic rock. So I've been playing it all my life, seems like, but finally, like I say, I'm playing in a thing now shows now that I get to use it a little bit more. But
I would think that since you had that influence with the Perez Prado and Cugat stuff early, that you would have fallen into Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears and those kind of bands also.
Well, like I say, I did some. Once I got here, I got back to Arizona. I did some casual work that had a lot of that stuff in it, but Nothing on my own. I wasn't really going out and really hustling stuff. It was all, by people that I knew, and I would just get calls. And because I was on the road so much, I didn't really have a chance to settle down and get a band together, or be in a band, or have a local steady gig or anything like that. So,
All right. And now we have to get into how, when, and where tap dancing started.
Okay, so about exactly the same time I started playing trombone was really where it kicked in. Actually, in 1988, my girlfriend at the time was a dancer. She was in one of the All-American College Band dancers, and I said, "You should show me some tap steps." I don't know. I was just curious. And so she showed me the very first step, shuffle off the buffalo and a shuffle stop, just some really basic stuff. I started dabbling with it. In February of '89, the Strutters did a show on the Carnation Plaza stage, which was a character show for kids. It featured all the characters, Minnie, Mickey, Tigger, Pluto, Donald Duck, all these. And I did a tap number with Chip and Dale. And so we choreographed that, and I ended up, doing that 6 times a day for six weeks or something, however long the show ran. But and then when the Strutters went on tour, I did the same number by myself, but it just wasn't feeling real good. It was almost like a gag.
Right.
They would clap and laugh at me.
Isn't that cute, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I stopped. In 1989, I stopped, and then I didn't even think about it until 1997. In the summer of '97, Disney hired street performers. A couple of the entertainment management went down to New Orleans and said, "How can we make New Orleans Square look more like real New Orleans?" And they said, "Well, we got to add street performers." So they had jugglers and a mime and stilt walkers and tap dancers. And so when they brought these tap dancers in, they brought some of the best people. Dormitia Sumbry Edwards, who's now super, great, was there, along with a couple of other people, Mike Rainey, Greg Poland, Jimmy Fisher, who's the only, who's a 17-year-old white kid who was just on fire. But anyway, once they started tapping, they were rhythm tappers who improv'd everything. Nothing was choreographed.
Right.
And, at first they come out and join the band and tap to it. And I'd say, "Hey, I could do that once a long time ago." And they just got me fired up. And once I saw that they were improvising and grooving to the music was what we were doing, it was completely different. And I was like, "Oh man, I have got to learn how to do this. This is where it's at." And once I started that, I was pestering Mike Rainey, who was 5 days a week at the time playing tap dancing. He goes, "As long as I'm here, I'll show you whatever you want." He was great and got me started and showed me. He goes, "Okay, do this move." And he goes, "When you can do that, that's your first rudiment, basically." And that's how I started. And on every break, I would get my tap shoes on, go up into the practice room, put on some earbuds, and listen to a metronome, and away
Drive
I
the
went.
band crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went off into a different room, because it was incessant. But the way, and from that, this whole notation thing started was, we would go on the set out in the street, and Mike would come and join us, and he would do a really cool step, and then I would be, after we would do our set, we'd come back up into our break room, and I'd say, "How did you do that step?" And he'd say, "What step?" And I had no way of, I try to figure out what he was doing, and then finally we would agree on it, and he would say, "Oh, this is called a maxi Ford," and I go, "Okay, how do you do that?" So he would teach me that for that break. And then we'd go back down, play a set. He'd come out and he'd do a different one, and I'd go, "How did you do that step?" And so it was this back and forth for a long time, and I started learning steps, but would forget how to do the last one. And eventually I said, "Man, I've got to figure out how to write this stuff down, because there's so much of it."
You don't happen to have a visual sample of that we could see on how it works?
I do, I could go grab a book real quick if you want me to.
I would
But
just love to see how your notation idea works. That'd be great.
this is, as you would expect, my footnotes.
Great name, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it kind of came. So basically, I explain all the steps in pictures.
Okay.
And now you can see the staff there, and it tells you each sound that you make with your foot is a note on the staff. And there are in this particular this book, the first book, there are about 13 different things you can do. So, for instance, the bottom space, which is an F on
right,
a
treble clef. You need to invent your own clef, by the way.
Well, that's kind of what this is. So this is the first exercise. So the clef really is only just the first letter of each of the steps, just so you can remember them. But there you go. So the first exercise has just the heel step, so you can and then I also have to tell them what quarter notes are, and I mean it's right at the beginning.
Right. You actually have to teach some basic rhythm theory.
Right, and as you go, it gets a little bit harder, and so, for instance, now we're at lesson 7. In chapter 6, I teach them eighth notes for the first time, but there's some duets in here, and each step has a right or a left, an R or L underneath it, so you can know which foot you're going to use. So there's a little bit of nomenclature in there that you have to familiarize yourself with. But I formulated it after the first book I learned out of, which was the Bellwin band method.
Yeah.
Which is in 3 books, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. I'm probably going to end up doing it in 2 books because it's taking too long. So
now, are you managing to notate step outs and step backs and those kind of things?
Any movement I haven't yet quite figured it out. I've tried a couple of different things, but this is basically just where you.
That's fine. I was just wondering if you actually found a way to like notate a buck and wing or something. That would be.
Yeah, with your arms and all that, that's just going to have to be, I think, just written as text somehow. But like, for instance, maybe a rotation. Like if I'm gonna do a spin, then I'll just put a circle with an arrow at the end to show you. That's.
I'm just asking because I know that some of the rhythms demand a little bit of choreography just to accomplish what you're doing. So
right. The biggest thing was weight shift. So in order to let you know that you place your weight on a foot, I just put a dot over the note, like a staccato note. But it's easy to see. I was trying to go after, ease of,
sure,
being able to see the step as soon, so you don't have to process too much information, because other tablatures for tap are 3 or 4 or 5 different lines. So you've got what the name of the step is, and then the where it occurs in the measure, that
right.
kind of stuff, and what foot you're going to use. So
it sounds like it's completely is needed, for one thing, for people that are just beginning and wanting to get into that style.
Right. The only problem is unless I teach it, I've approached some choreographers and tap instructors, and if they don't read, it's completely foreign to them, and it kind of puts them off because it's just a thing that they don't have time to learn.
That's almost mind-boggling, isn't it? That you can be a tap dancer and not understand time. Or
right.
No time notation is what I guess what.
Right, especially when you've got guys, from the old school who were just had ridiculous time and were musicians like Sammy Davis,
Oh yeah, or Buddy Rich for that matter started out as a tapper.
Buddy Rich, right, exactly.
Which,
I think
which
Steve
makes
Gadd
me wonder how come you hadn't fallen into drums.
Yeah, well, I've got a drum set here, but it's on my list of instruments to learn, because I've already way past where I should be with all of that. It's funny because once I decided where the notes should go for each step, the first day I had 4 pages of stuff. I mean, I was and I realized, oh, this works. And so now if I come up with a step, even now, I'll just jot it down so I don't have to memorize it. And I've just got way more stuff than I can possibly, memorize. And it's good for analyzation. You can look at a like I've transcribed Eddie Brown's BS chorus, and if you look at it, you can see it unfold on the page, before you even see him do it, so you can understand what it's going to sound like just by looking at it. Also, I want to point out that once I started teaching at the Sacramento Jazz Camp, they asked me to, I had the book, and they asked me if I would like to try to teach a course there, or at least one lesson. And so I started doing that and realized that all those kids who can read music were able to read it immediately. And of course, so I said, okay, here's page 1, ready, go. And everybody was together, and it was pretty amazing to watch them be able to just read it right out of the gate. And I have taught, there's the Paiute Center here, which is kind of a place for underprivileged kids to do different things. I taught some classes there, and 5- and 6-year-old kids could do it first day. So they understood what I was talking about, and it empowered them to go, oh, I know, because I would project it up onto the screen, and we could all watch it together and do the exercises together.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah,
where can people find your book? And do you have a website up?
I do. The website, and it's kind of the only place to get the paper copy, which is tapdancenow.com, which it can also be, I had this one on my shirt called tapdancenotation.com, which I still have, but either of those will take you to the website where you can purchase the book. As I said, once Apple came out with iBooks that you could add video to books, I videoed every single exercise. So there's over 200 short videos. If you download the book to your iPad, there's a little button there, you press that, and up comes the exercise with all the notes highlighted as I'm tapping them, and my whole body. And,
that was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. And now I've taken all those videos and put them on DVDs. So if you do buy the book hard copy, you get a DVD with it that has all the exercises on it as well. So
give the address one more time.
Tapdancenow.com. And
now, is there a site where they can hear some of your music and some of your
I do have a YouTube channel as well. It's just my name, Greg Varlotta. There's also Tap Dance Now videos on YouTube that I started to do a few years back. I started to do some very basic beginning steps, and that's what I want to get back to. I'm actually working on a website called tapdance.tech, which introduces some technology into tap dance, such as pickups on your tap boards, pickups in your taps,
right,
and doing different things with some older technology and some newer technology.
Now, do you also teach soft shoe?
I don't. I actually don't really teach tap at all, except for what's in the book,
right,
and online. But I haven't yet gone there. But I still tap several days a week, if not every day. I try to, and it keeps me in shape. And I'm using it a little bit in the show that I'm working on.
Well, that's another idea for you, is to try to work out a routine as an aerobics class for those who.
Right.
Well, I'm actually not kidding.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. I think tap is a great mind-body sort of exercise, and you can get as crazy as you want. I can tire myself out in 30 seconds, or I can go for 90 minutes. So it really is a, kind of a all-encompassing kind of creative, yet analytical. There's some math involved. And it kind of it's also therapeutic and almost meditative. If you're working on one single rhythm and you do it over and over again, it's kind of like meditation. So it's like a great.
Like you said, like meditation. I'm sure that if you were doing a time step for 10 minutes, it would transport you somewhere else, Yeah,
it absolutely does. It helps me problem solve while I'm doing it, and it just makes me feel better. It's kind of like an upper, So.
Well, great. I'm so glad you agreed to do this. We're going to start wrapping things up a little bit here.
Okay.
If there's anything else you'd like to mention, or websites, or availability, or for anything, this time is yours. So go at it.
Well, I'm I just want to say that having done all the stuff that I've done in music and jazz, really did start with trad jazz, and I'm still a huge fan of it. It really still sends me somewhere when I hear a really good band just kicking, and having the opportunity to teach kids at the camp. Last year was my 19th year at the Sacramento Traditional Jazz Camp. And I'll probably do it until I can't do it anymore, because it's such a wonderful experience. And of course, all the faculty there with Bill Dendel leading the way
Sure.
is really amazing. If kids keep, and now we're already seeing kind of a resurgence in some of the students that we taught have moved to New Orleans.
Oh yeah, Jason Jerzak and all those kids. Yeah.
Jeff Kreis, Molly Reeves, of course, Bria.
Look at Jason Weiner. He was a graduate of the Mammoth Lakes Jazz Camps.
Right. Well, he went directly from being a student to the faculty.
Yes, I know.
So, anyway, great stuff. It's where I kind of cut my teeth on jazz. You can't start in bebop, really. You can, but I tried that and it was way over my head. So learning traditional jazz was a great start and introduction to jazz in general. And I recommend.
I tell I do teach on the high school level, and I tell all my students that if you don't know how to crawl, you're never going to learn how to run, and that's kind of trad jazz versus playing giant steps.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, and that's what I realized was, these chords aren't so difficult. They're a little bit more. I can wrap my head around, the colors of, a 6 chord and a dominant chord, as opposed to a 13 or a sharp 11, or, that comes later. But once you learn those basic chords, it makes everything a lot more interesting and easy to grasp. So.
Yeah, it's what the other thing that's interesting, of course, if you listen closely to, Louis or Django, they're already doing those extensions.
Right.
In passing, right. It's just they make it sound so melodic you don't notice it. Right.
And of course, Hoagie Carmichael's great compositions add a lot of that stuff to the melody. So,
not to mention In a Mist.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Bix was, and some of those recordings are just amazing to listen to too. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Greg. Thank you so much for doing this once again.
Absolutely. And, my pleasure.
And like I said, I may be coming back at some point in time. I plan on doing a whole educational series where we do nothing but talk about the kind of the nuts and bolts of music and the different disciplines. So right. I may ask you for another one, more technical in the future.
Please do. I'll try to keep it focused. I tend to.
No, me too. I'm the king of ADD here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the opportunity. Take care.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to see you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Trad Jazz Today. Dan shows new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to check out the archive of past shows, and please give us a thumbs up when you subscribe to the channel. Bye.